start recording. Okay. Let's see. So last time we were looking at this fun document and just brainstorming what we're going to do. And we basically decided that we're going to try and do something like this. We're going to try and make something, write the usage code first, make something with sort of an ImGUI feel to it, even though we're going to be slightly different to ImGUI because we need separate update and render. Excuse me. Update and render calls. So let's just get started with that now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this into a method. Void and so this is going to be our our starting point, basically. And what we want to do, the idea is we want to add as little as possible to this in order to have a working user interface, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, although I guess I don't want to derail us too much, but just the idea that the imgui.net library, which just wraps imgui, it still uses the sort of one pathway. I know we talked about doing a draw in an update and a little bit about what that would look like last time. Is that still like the favored way, or is there a reason why the wrapper kind of hides the fact that there's two draws, or maybe it's not suitable for in-game, right? Because of the fact that it won't be able to handle the synchronization issues if there's multiple updates before a draw. Do people just say, "Oh, I don't care about that because I use imgui for debug"?
It's a little bit of both. The only reason we need to do it this way is because we could have a draw happen without an update having occurred, and we could also have an update without a draw, but that's less of an issue. It's just if you have an update without a draw, you just skip the draw. But the thing is, we have to run this in a networked context,
Right.
and so we want to avoid going down that road of side effects and stuff. There's just no getting away from the fact that we need to be able to draw the UI without updating it.
Right. That makes sense.
And yeah, and once you're at that point, you may as well just separate out the draw and the update systems. So what this is going to look like, going back to here. So this was roughly the idea. We're gonna pass in some sort of UI system class.
Right. And remember the dev menus that you made?
Yeah.
Those I think all of the state, it was I think you probably considered that already, because in the dev menus, I think if I remember correctly, it just either you were in non-networked mode, so you could do things that actually changed the state, but most of the time all of those mutating methods were turned off during dev, right? It was mostly just what do you call it, like read-only stuff, right? You couldn't just flip around, you couldn't use the dev keys to turn off friendly fire or whatever during the game, right? You had those disabled, I think, during network play.
Well, yeah, either they were wrapped with if is networked, or is and then dev key blah blah blah.
Right.
Either we did that, or it wasn't like that, and it would desync the network if you touched it.
Right.
And the way that worked is kind of similar to ImGUI. The update call would be dev keys dot a does, and it's what was it, if dev keys dot a, and then it would be like you were saying, friendly fire equals not fire, and in fact we like dev key.toggle we had, and it was like ref
Right.
friendly fire, so you could skip doing the whole this
Right.
thing just for simplicity, and then it would display, this is the key, and then we do like a string fire. And the way it would work is it was actually a lot like ImGui, and that is throughout the update it would gather every single call to toggle. So when you called toggle would actually do this operation, but would also write keys a friendly fire is true to a list of strings that would then get printed out during the draw method. So it's very ImGui like.
Right. That's basically what we were saying before, how we don't want to just keep a list of instructions. So this system will actually be better than that, because it will be kind of natively aware of network situations.
Yeah. So like this was entire, like this sat outside the network system, and these like modifying this variable came from a non-networked source. So I'm sure you remember, like I don't have an image up. Like there's this concept of like, here's the game state, and you would advance to game state 0, 1 by putting in some inputs, and every frame you'd have some inputs, and if you could record the inputs and the initial game state, you could replay it to any position. But if you go and reach in here and be like toggle friendly fire, then that's not tracked by the input tracking system, and so you hit that problem. So
right,
we want
desync basically.
Yeah, so in this case the UI, as much as that dev menu can be called UI, is sitting outside of this system, whereas we want something where the UI is going to sit inside here and actually accept inputs. And so if it's inside here, it will work with the network replay system.
Right. Yep.
That
concludes my derailment of the exercise.
Please derail. So what we're going to do is get rid of that. So this will probably look something like main menu new UI draw, and probably UI update. So, and does it make sense how that might function?
Yeah, I mean, it gives me the update context vibe and the draw context vibe. So you kind of have like buckets of data to kind of fill up, send to the main menu, do your thing, or maybe it gets filled up by the main menu call itself, the invocation, and then you pass that on to whatever is going to like care about it after that.
Exactly. So yeah, the draw one like probably will be more like that, and then it's like, actually, you know what, we may even not need to do that. Like we could just have UI. We probably will actually be like UI.finish, something like that.
Oh yeah, like a begin and end, like a sprite batchian type of thing.
Yeah, because we're probably going to want to batch these things. Like you can imagine your draw main menu you have here. You don't want to be like begin, end, begin, end, begin, end on text just like that, just because that will waste batches. Not that that's a huge deal on modern cards for a user interface, but so the idea here is like you've just written UI update, although is that
you've got UI system.
I'm just like you will want to have that as like a base class. So these will be like abstract methods.
But base class, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm in. Let's do this. We haven't compressed yet. I'm gonna do this. That's awesome. Okay. Public class UI update. System. Makes perfect sense because these are probably gonna have a lot of commonality. System. System. Right, and also because you want, because you want to call them both the same method, but just a different flavor of system. Got it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I haven't, I haven't made a UI system quite like this before. Like, I kind of have, but I am wary of doing this. So you'll remember all of our in River City. I wonder if I can look these up. GitHub Commons Creative Pixel 3D. Let me just try and find one just for the sake of example. If I wanted to find like animation set, that would be under
Pixel 3D dot FNA and then animations.
Okay. So I think this, yeah, because we have serialized context here. So we do have these context objects for like, here's a serialization context, but you'll notice that this one isn't, inheriting from a, animation serialized base, because we have serialized and deserialized contexts are separate. And then when we go to do the actual serialization, if I can find the code.
It's no longer in a thing, it's right back. It's back in the object itself, so yay.
That was the question, is it?
Should be. Should be what? We're there?
Well, we'll have a look at maybe animation or animation frame. If I can't find it, it doesn't really matter too much.
Okay. Pretty sure I did that work though.
Well, where did it used to be? It's in this serialization thing.
Nope, no, it's way out of there. It's in a land. It's in it's in like Pixel 3D serialization supports. It's in a completely different place, but it shouldn't be because I removed all of that. And I even got rid of all of the other stuff that.
Oh well. Anyway.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. So it was just for sake of example, and the basically the point was, when I was designing the serialization systems, I made a conscious decision here that read and write would be separate methods, and it would just be a case of you have to manually keep them in sync.
Right, and I guess what you're trying to do here is trying to have a dual pathway. Although you may want to just split them out, and then maybe we can compress them later.
Well, that's going to be the question, and that is doing it this way the best way to do it, or would it be better to have main menu, update and main menu draw as separate methods?
Well, I mean, I guess from a consumer point of view, like user of the library, they probably only want to write it once.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why you're taking the pain. Although that would make what I'm doing here with this draw not make sense, because draw, like, wouldn't, draw is not an update, or it's not a diagnostic concept, so I would have to do something like label.
Exactly. So let's get in there. Let's get in there and just do that for now, and we'll see what happens. Although we're probably going to want. I guess, yeah, we'll start with labels, and then we'll turn them into like actual.
But yeah, there's no layout concept yet.
But you can see
just add them to the bottom of a list. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So you can see that this is like already a very simple like way of conceptualizing how to do it
Oh.
interface abstract. Like by doing it this way, the person, the end user, the consumer, doesn't have to worry about any of the like layout or like just all of the like. I think last time we actually looked at some of our UI code and it was like, oh god, there's this massive like 400 line class and you have to have like a different method that tracks where the cursor is and tracks different options. Like this is so much like if I want to add another menu option, like exit 2, and I'm done.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, so much time was lost to just futzing about on. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I mean, this is like part of the idea of maybe the compression thing, and that is just thinking about how like how much you're going to do. Like if there were only 2 menus, or even like maybe 1, 2, or 3 menus in River City, the way we did it would have been fine, because I imagine that this code is going to be like maybe 1,000, 2,000 lines or so when we're finished. So if you've got like 3 menus and they're 400 lines a piece, that's less code. But when you have, I think we had like 16 or 18 or so menus in the game.
That's right.
Yeah, then you get to the point where it's like, well, no, now we want to systematize it. So,
and plus also the impedance mismatch of local versus simulation, modal versus not modals, nested versus not nested. There's like all kinds of sort of concessional junk in there too that we can kind of want to avoid.
And you have to handle that in multiple places, and so you hit that like don't repeat yourself issue as well. So let's figure out what these methods will do. Because I'm thinking label in update will do absolutely nothing. Whereas in draw we actually have to do something.
That's interesting. I actually implemented this as virtual in UI system and then had it do nothing. But you would force the issue, keep it as an interface, I assume.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons for doing that. First of all, if you have like just I mean, it's really not a problem because it's only a handful of bytes. But if you have an implementation in UI system, that's another method that the compiler has to compile and spit out into the program. Whereas if it's abstract, it's like it's just a 0. It's just a blank entry. But from a coding point of view, and it's in this case it's like almost not a problem either way. But it'll tell you, it's like if I then add label, and if I add foo, then try and build it, it's going to say, oh look, maybe I implemented it for this one and I forgot to implement it in UI draw. It will fail at compile time rather than at
VirtualGun is basically hiding changes from you, and then you don't know about them, and then you end up having a stub method where it would have failed loudly. So fair enough, that's good style.
And the other thing that I'm just pondering whether finish should perhaps be in draw itself.
Right, you've declared it explicitly, so it doesn't have to be part of the system. Yeah, good point. I was thinking maybe there's a finish for like the update state if we needed to shovel it somewhere, but I don't think so.
Even in that case, you may want to consider doing it this way. Like it doesn't really make sense for finish to be a virtual method.
Yeah.
Right. Because and sort of there's a symmetry there, because like the constructor will not be virtual. So it's like there's the constructor and then we're finished. Um, so if I were to say, right, let's start implementing this thing, how would you how do you reckon we would go about doing that?
Um, Probably first thing might be to create a container to put the multiple calls to label. In the case of update, probably just send them to a list I guess we're just doing the old instruction thing. Build up a list inside UI update, and then um, that's an interesting question. I guess I don't know yet how we're making a new UI draw. So actually no, UI update does nothing for label, which is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make sense because label is a presentational issue. So therefore, the list should go in UI draw, because we're gonna call main menu and then pass in the system. The system in the case of draw is gonna build up a list of label objects, and then we're gonna want to probably render it in the finish call.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. For now we can just append to the end of a list because we don't have a layout system to speak of, right?
Well, okay, so we could do that, but I'm going to suggest we do something slightly more like, I guess, like ImGUI, and that is we don't need to start like forming a list of strings, particularly because you'll remember, and we were saying this in the brainstorm about don't GC, we probably want to have something like
oh sure
or working. I'll just call it working.
Yeah, I'm used to that.
And this is just because then we can save some memory. And of course, up here, we probably will actually eventually cache these things as well.
Right. Well, since you're up there, we probably want to pass in contextual stuff into the UI draw constructor, like the graphics device and the sprite batch.
So, we could bring in the sprite batch. That's probably the simplest way to handle that.
I forgot to set the resharper complainotron to the right style. Okay, this seems fine. Excuse me while I remove this prefix. Okay. All right. So anyway, so where were we? You say we don't want to build up a list, so
what we can do, I mean, just basically we can go batch
just do it.
Draw.
Yeah, but we don't know if it's begun or not. I mean, are we leaving that up to the user to begin the sprite batch? Or
so
going to control it?
So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So I think for now, the simplest thing to do is just say we're just using one sprite batch. So we could just add begin, and we could begin in the constructor, but we know that we're actually going to pull this constructor out and do it elsewhere. So UI.begin is probably a sensible thing to do. And then this is the sort of thing where we can change this later.
Yeah.
So you can imagine over here we could be like if has begun, or if not has begun, begin. And you can also imagine, and I think we did this in a few places in River City around changing the sprite effect. It's like, we're about to draw a sprite, but we want it with an effect that isn't the effect. So it's like if Draw current draw with not equal to sprite batch. Then it's like current
Blow everything away and yeah.
draw with dot end sprite batch dot begin, current draw with equals sprite batch, sort of that sort of thing. So that's something that's sorry.
Oh, I don't. There's no way to get the begunnedness off of a sprite batch. You'd have to like track that.
No, and
yourself.
In fact, if I was writing sprite batch myself, I may have chosen to do it differently, perhaps, because sprite batch, like a better way to think about sprite batch, and this is the other thing is sprite batch is sort of improved in XNA 4. Like before that, it was a bit weird. But basically, the way to think about it in all of its modes except immediate is it's a list. Like you're filling a list of sprites, and begin does nothing, and begin just stores its parameters and does nothing, and then you hit end, and then it's like, all right, well, I've got this list, and I'm going to spit it out to the graphics device. And one thing that might be useful on occasion is like, well, I've built up this list of stuff. When I reach end, I want to spit out that list to the graphics device, but I don't actually want to blow away the list. Like I might want to be like end and then end and draw it twice, maybe like with a different transform, and then I might want to like transform A and like transform B for maybe a split screen or something.
Right.
Or I could save the list between frames. It's like, well, the sprites didn't change, so I'm going to keep this list of sprites. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do that you can't with sprite batch, because sprite batch internally is just like it's a vertex buffer basically.
Right, but I mean we're using FNA, so it could certainly you could certainly customize it and make a new class called sprite batch 2 or something.
This is true. Like we just grab this and do our own thing.
Yeah, but
this is fine for now. This is great. So drawstring text.
So yeah, we need the font as well and the working buffer thing. Like that's an interesting thing. We're gonna pass a string literal into label.
Yes.
How are we going to use the working buffer in that case? Just append it? And then
Okay, so the working buffer. I'll get rid of this for now. Just because we're not using it, but eventually we will want some storage there, which means that we're actually going to have to go ahead at some point, just because C# is wonderful. We're going to have to like string build,
right,
and have two versions of every method. Unfortunately,
right.
Just because we want to avoid garbage.
Yeah,
because we don't want to do like two string on every single.
Right. I mean, drawstring does that too, right? It has overloads for those two things. So
exactly.
How am I going to get this sprite font right now? I guess I don't really want to bring that in. Well, maybe I have to.
So we'll need a font. So we could just do it by storing it here.
Right. Although that's limiting us now to one font.
This is true, but you can imagine that, it's like, oh, we want more fonts. It's like, all right, list sprite font.
Right.
And we're done. So it's actually quite straightforward.
Text. All right, position. That's an interesting one. I guess we have to be tracking a position that's based on the sprite font size, and then we'll need to like count how many times we've entered label to like get it on the next line and so on, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so before you use measure string, there is line height, which is probably what we want in this case.
Oh. Yeah, and it's not computed, I'm assuming it's cached. So.
Yeah, the fact that line height is mutable is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's line spacing?
Yeah, lines. Font, there we go. Line spacing. So line plus equals line spacing. It's an integer, but that's fine.
Right. Well, we'll probably eventually want to add our own padding as well. It's probably not
Oh
gonna
yeah,
look good if it's tight and fit like that.
yes.
But hey, this is just a first kick. Yeah, so that's gonna give us Y, but X, I guess we don't really have a concept of that. Maybe we just zero it for now.
Yeah. I
Or
mean,
whatever.
I'll stuck 5 in there for fun.
Okay.
Just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no color at the moment, and we're not going to be doing scale. I guess we're assuming.
Yeah, I don't think we need any of the other parameters.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Good.
So, I just have to pass the font. Just going to rename this font. 'Cause-
What's the font?
I think it's just called font.
I mean, like the one I'm going to give to it. I just have to load it somewhere.
It's right there. It's right there. We've already got a font in the
we're
template.
In the FNA template. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all sorted for us, you know.
Right. Go.
So in theory, hey, we got ourselves a menu. So I might just comment out the other drawing stuff for now, just to make our life a bit less full of test code.
Cool.
So that's pretty good. And that's a perfectly reasonable implementation of label. And eventually we'll want to build upon this. It's also worth looking at, in fact, how does FNA do it? Draw string, text. How many different implementations of drawstring are there, Ethan?
Well, remember, like XNA provides umpteen overloads to it too, plus the string builder versions and everything.
It looks like Ethan's just copy pasted it. I happen to know that in XNA there's actually a wacky sort of like struct. My string is like string s string builder sb. They do this sort of thing and just pass this around, and then have operator that or whatever to like access. Like they've got all the methods. It's like if this is not null, do this. Otherwise, do that. It's like sort of wraps it so that they avoid internally having a bajillion different implementations. But that's fine. Like copy pasting the code like that is also not ridiculous. So
checking the if all the time, isn't that a branch you don't want to check? Not that it's worth caring about, but
for text drawing, yeah, it's like I think you probably have quite a lot of branches in text drawing anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you are right. It probably would be better not to do that branch. Okay, so let's.
What's the next feature we can add here that's reasonable? We have a
Well,
long list.
let's turn this into a menu. Let's do the update side of it now. So we have item. Turn those into items, and basically we'll sort of go through the same process. We'll call that public abstract.
And we're not gonna pass closures, right? But we're gonna return a bool, I assume.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. Cool. So first of all, we know for a fact in the draw thing, it's always going to be return false. So we're never going to return true from the drawing system. But we are going to just go off to label that text probably. Although we will have to track which one is being touched.
They're gonna bring in input now, I guess.
So now we have to figure out, this is the more tricky side of things.
I forget the let's exit. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's probably,
The easiest menu item ever.
yeah, we'll just implement that one. So we have a thing that works. But I mean, what we want to do now is we need the concept of like a selected item.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. I just had a thought. The way that MGUI does it, I think, is like if you want to have it bases it on string comparison, which is a pretty reasonable way of doing it. But then if you want to have some hidden text, it's like if you have like two different options called network game, and you want to differentiate them, it's like, you know, here's 1 and here's 2, and so this will draw as network game, but it will string compare differently. And if you wanted like a blank option, it's like something like that. And then my thought was like, well, you can actually build this into the renderer. You don't have to do actually string manipulation. You just implement your own sprite batch. But we'll skip that for now, and we'll skip doing hidden text or anything like that.
We're just basically just doing a single button press equals you selected that item, right? But in order to do that, we have to know, we have to also know where we are in the
menu. So let's for now do what MGUI does, and that is we'll track what option is being selected by by a string, because you can imagine I might do something like this if seconds dot second equals it's like 2 equals 0.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like we'll want to handle this case and not have the caret mess up. So, in fact, if I run this, will this actually just work?
Menu trolling.
So,
yeah, that's a really good point. I don't. Oh, mine didn't work at all, but I probably did something dumb.
Oh, so you just have not done what I've done here, which is have item just go into label.
No, this should. Yeah, I did it, but I did it in the update.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, technically that's still correct, but no, that's not a good idea. Okay. Yay. Okay.
Okay, so let's start working out where the cursor is. So we need a concept of the cursor first of all. So let's just say that it's at item 0 somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the first. I don't know. So in UI update, maybe if this is the first item that we've visited, we'll just. Well, I mean, we could just set it to 0, or we just default, like we just throw an integer in UI update, right, for the index that we're in. Call it item index.
Yeah,
I would do it. I mean, now it's technically already 0.
Yeah.
And then I guess now here's the thing. Well, maybe that needs to be a UI system because draw needs to know the index too.
Draw
Not
does need to know the index too. That's correct. However, keep in mind that this and this are different
instances of
instances.
the thingy.
So we're actually going to need
Okay.
something else. Possibly.
Do we have to retain the UI update and then pass it into the UI draw? That would be
Um,
weird though. It's gonna be gross.
Yeah, so now we're actually going to have to think about the UI has to track its state on the network. So we're actually going to need some sort of UI state that sticks around. Um, so
Yeah.
one way we could do it, it would be like this. Let's retain UI update for now. And so we'll retain that, and if we retain that, we can then do this.
Right.
And then yeah, then we don't need to worry at all about like yeah, and then draw can just do its thing. Draw can just
Right, but
reach
draw,
into
but draw's
update.
going to what about when UI, I guess UI update will never be null because it's going to be instantiated on the game class at the moment, so it'll just be defaulted values. But I was thinking like what about whatever. I guess this is fine.
And so there is one thought, and that is UI update. Yeah. So if we're doing this on the network, and for people watching at home, will be like, "What?
Oh
Why
yeah,
are you
now they're
doing
gonna now they can touch it by accident and ruin everything.
No, no. Well, I mean, yeah. So you want to be like, don't like the rule is,
Read only update. I mean, you could even rename it to read only update just for fun. I know we
Yeah.
did that for me.
so, yeah. So basically, you make it so you have to pass one in during begin, and this is because
Oh, I see.
we're keeping the draw instance around as like a cache bit of data, but
Yes.
the I can't remember where we had issues like this we had to take care of. Like this object can change out from underneath us during a network update.
Yeah, it could roll back and get completely blown away. Be written. Yeah, this makes more sense because forcing you to pass it just when you need it helps hint that it's functional. And shouldn't we not null it out at the finish, right?
I did, yeah. So
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Shouldn't, what happened? Oh, I see. You still have to, yeah, I get it now. Okay. Dates. Okay.
Yeah. So now
I guess this is just if
Yeah.
update item index oh, we have to count this index too. So we need our own counter thingy. Item draw. Well, I guess it could be called item index too, but yeah, current's better.
well, this is the current index that we're drawing. So
Right. So then you'd be like if plus plus this guy is equal to this guy. Oh wait, no, that's bad. That's better.
and then you can imagine we can probably safely do that, and
Oh, good point.
If that, and then we'll just for now that will do. Okay.
You're incrementing. Well, you're not actually, but you're
just like,
looking like you want to increment index during the label visit. But what if the item, like, is that? I mean, I guess it would happen no matter what thing it is. It's just that's the index of the item that you, the UI element index, not just label or item.
So I think I have a feeling that we're going to have to rethink this situation slightly, but for now let's keep going, and just do it with an index for now.
Yeah, I can see this getting out of hand. I put a current index on the item and the label, but that's not going to work because
you've just incremented that twice.
Calls the label. Yeah.
And so this is like, okay, do we track the current index, which is really the Y position, or like do we actually back out that change? And so I have to think about that. That's fine. But let's go up here and actually make sure that the index is correct now. Yep, and then setting that to 0. Yep.
I got this. It's like, do we need to set this to null if the next begin is? I guess we do, right? Because I just wonder because like sometimes you want to put them all right before you start or right when you end. I'm not really sure if it matters, but I feel like
setting it to null is just a safety thing. It's like making an object dispose. It lets the garbage collector clean that up if it wants to. It's a bit of a safety thing if you miss the finish call, or you could in fact do something like if this dot update is not equal to null, throw new exception. And then do the same thing.
Yeah, I think XNA does that. Right.
Yeah, so this is a fairly straightforward way of keeping this in track. Like normally, I guess if this is like a publicly facing interface, it's like, well, I'll do this just to be nice, but it's like this is so trivial that no one's going to mess that up. But yeah,
did I do everything right?
So now we have to actually make sure item index is set to something useful and allow scrolling through it.
So I guess that's just item index plus. Oh no.
So we actually need.
UI. Yeah, we need to give this some kind of input system. Maybe maybe FNA template system too. Yeah.
And so you can see already that we're actually going to need to do this situation here. So that's fine. Because we need current index equals 0 there. So maybe in fact we do actually want these to be. For now they don't need to be. They can be that.
Well, I'm a little.
Have I jumped past you?
A little bit. That's okay.
So I've just added begin and end, or do I call it begin and finish?
Oh, begin and end to the update call.
Yeah, I did. I made it unhappy for some reason. Begin. That's why, and finish. I'm going to call that end actually. Just for now. Yeah, they don't need to be abstract because you never call them in a situation where you don't have the exact type.
Right.
So current index
Oh,
is 0, and then we have item, and then current index plus plus.
Well, the other one was called finish. Do we care?
I just changed it just now. I just called it end. I was like, finish,
both of
finish
them,
was
yeah.
bothering me. So I changed it to end. I tend to do, I'm not sure it's a great idea, but like if I have a begin end, it's usually begin end, whereas if I have like a nothing and then a finish, it's finish. That's just my naming scheme that I usually
Makes
use.
sense. Hold on a sec. So you added item.
So I've got current item, current index, and then I've got item index will be the one that's selected. So possibly I'm going to change that to selected index, so it makes a bit more sense.
Right. So begin sets it to 0. Traversing the item changes that. I mean, we're not talking about wraparound yet. Like what happens if we get to the end?
Yeah,
but we'll
so
worry about that later, I guess.
This is clearly going to need a lot more thought put into it, I think.
Sure. Well, maybe not today, but
No. So let's finish it up by actually getting some. Let's just fudge this for now, because we are pretty much out of time, and we can do this this year.
But we do want to. Are we going to send FNA template input in there? We're going to do it in the. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So why don't we do up? That is key. No, that should be key went down. Keys up.
Not sure.
And then
calling this in the end.
Well, at the point where end gets called, it's like we have all of the items. We know what they all are.
Right.
So that's when you said wraparound. It's like, yes, well, we can do wraparound in the end call. Otherwise, we have to store stuff across calls, which is not unreasonable. Like we could do this in begin, but then we have to store how many indices we had last time.
Right.
Which is not a ridiculous thing to do. So maybe in fact we'll write to do and you question mark that one because who knows how we'll do it, but you can see there's a bit of a conflict here. And it's like track across frames. It's like, well, if we track across frames, that's an extra bit of data that gets stored in the network state. Do we want to
right,
keep track of that? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We probably do. So for now, in fact, I don't think we need current index. We're just doing it the simple way.
Well, we still don't. We still can't pick anything, and we still haven't drawn anything.
Oh yeah.
Or,
So
like,
in fact, yeah, we can. This is actually great. We can actually do this correctly. So we're calling update.end. Why is my selected index not working? Current index. So let's figure out that now. Let's see if it's actually doing something, because I feel like this should actually do something and it's not. That's getting called. Oh, I know. Yeah, that's fine. I've got my up and down mixed up. So this is great. We've got a cursor that's at least changing between options. So that's something.
Oh.
And you can see already the problem that we have with this option that goes away and comes back is when it comes back, we actually want to stay on this exit option.
Right.
But there's one last thing to do. So yeah, it's a menu. We're making some progress. So there's one last thing to do, and that is if input dot key went down and keys dot space. Actually, enter. Yeah, let's do space. Return true. That'll do. So in theory, we should be able to scroll down to exit if I can actually stay on exit and press it, and there we go.
That's the whole game. You got to stay on exit.
You think you can quit?
It's like Undertale of menus. Unfortunately, I still exit when I hit haha, but that's for next time.
That's quite Oh, really?
Well,
I was like, hang on, we've missed a step here. It's like if current index equals item selected index. So, and this should actually increment after. Yeah, so that's a really good point. We actually missed that step in the process. So now if I hit, I'm sorry, I was like, now if I hit space it shouldn't exit, but it totally exited.
Well, because it's currently both 0. It's 0, but we're actually not initialized yet. It should actually have the caret on start when we start, because we're at 0. For some reason.
Is that the case? So this is a fun little debugging thing to finish off on.
Like it's only when you add a movement. At least for me, I will certainly messed up because when it starts up, I don't have a caret and I'm on 0. So I can press start and kill it.
Selected index is 2. Current index is 2. Return true. It's like current index should not be 2. Current index should be a lot higher than 2. That's weird.
Yeah.
So I feel like to begin with, there's a small issue, and that is that you can see our label is now mismatched between these two things. So we actually have to do this. I don't think that will fix the bug, but that's really weird. Why is it exiting? I don't understand. So, ladies and gentlemen,
that's all the time we have for today.
That's all the time we have for today. We'll come back to that next week. Have you got any thoughts on what we've done wrong here?
Not at all.
All right, I actually.
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen. Why is that happening?
Funny. Oh, maybe no, that's not that.
Why is it returning true? That's so bizarre.
So it's that's the only way it could have returned true. Current index is somehow.
Oh well, I think this
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. In UI update, I think the current index is being incremented as we add labels, so it's always going to be like. Oh no, that doesn't make sense either. But I think that I think it's in the wrong. No, never mind. Yeah, it looks right. It's just that maybe the main menu is a label, so it increments index, right?
Yeah,
so
this is correct.
Yeah, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I think we'll save that one for next week. That's a little brain puzzler for everyone watching at home. Write down in the comments what you think the problem is. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.